Мы переходим на английский язык. And this is my very, very big pleasure to invite Giacomo Zucco, Chief Executive Officer at Blockchain Lab, to the stage. Please give a big round of applause. Giacomo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you Lilia and everyone in Distributed Lab to inviting me in this very participated conference. It's a pleasure to see a lot of people here in many concurrent tracks study this kind of topics. My purpose here is to present you the two initiatives that, oops. Okay, it's done. So my purpose is to present you the main initiative I'm following and I'm managing, which are the Blockchain Lab and especially the Blockchain Club. Names are not so much original, I have to admit it, but they convey the idea. And also to tell you something about the Italian ecosystem I contributed to create as maybe an example to something that you could do too, or as an example of something that you should not do and that we could learn from what you are doing here. So exchanging experiences about how do we promote and protect and develop the blockchain ecosystem in Italy. To do that, to explain you all about the general ecosystem, I will anyway start with the Blockchain Lab and Blockchain Club because that's the central point, the centralized point of everything. We started with that. We started to make it sustainable economically with that, and then everything around started to flourish and to develop. I'm Giacomo Zucco. I am a theoretical physicist. In theory, I never researched practically in physics. I have been a technology consultant in Accenture for 4 years, and then in 2013, as many of you, I discovered Bitcoin, and everything changed because other stuff were not so much interesting anymore. And I started to participate in some startups. I worked for 2 years at the beginning of a Green Address Bitcoin wallet with Lawrence Naum. I did my Bitcoin mining farm in Switzerland, not very profitable, and then I closed it. And I participated in a Panama firm for money exchange with Bitcoin, a IoT company writing on the blockchain, a lot of stuff, very dispersed. Then in May of the last year, I started the Blockchain Lab initiative, which I explain. I will explain you in a moment. And now, since this month, we are actually starting the Blockchain Club experiment, which is the natural completion of the Blockchain Lab. You can write me now after I will give you some business card. I would love to have a question from you just now during the presentation or after. In English, sorry. You can write me to giacomo@blockchainlab.it, but since it's very easy to make mistakes in writing blockchainlab.it, you can also write me on the personal mail or @Giacomo Zucco is on Twitter, on Telegram, kind of everywhere. So, cool. And maybe the problem is the power. Okay. So, Bitcoin started to become a thing in Italy under the name of blockchain, of course, mainly last year. We had some interest from big banks in 2014, but in 2015 was really the year that the ecosystem in Italy started to be aware of this innovation. And from our point of view, we started to see two problems. Financial institution have a lot of money, so they are okay with that for now, but they have no knowledge at all about this technology, and they cannot reach knowledge easily in the way they are used to. They cannot go to a university to ask for a blockchain expert, not yet. They will be able to do that in maybe 4 years, 3 years. We could also help to do that, but right now it's impossible to have this knowledge as just commodity, asking for that. Consultancy firms are not helping. They are very good guys reading CoinDesk the day before and building a nice PowerPoint presentation. Oh, but by the way, usually a lot of people, a lot of speakers use PowerPoint, and I feel cool because I use Prezi. But Lascia presentation was better than this with all the 3D moving. So this sucks in comparison. Yeah. Anyway, he will teach me how to do that, all that 3D stuff. But material design flat is the new trend, so I'm better than you. And so they have a lot of money, but they don't have knowledge. They don't have any clue of what blockchain is or does. Some of them know that they don't know, and that's better. Many of them think they do know what blockchain is, and they don't, and that's worst. And so they have problem to access to knowledge. On the other side, and I will explain this well because it could also lead to misunderstandings. The blockchain-related, Bitcoin-related, blockchain-related projects gather a lot of skills, a lot of talent, a lot of intelligence from around the world. Most of the most promising minds are working on that, from cryptography, from distributed system engineering, from game theory. There is a lot of smart people doing stuff on Bitcoin and on blockchain projects, but there are not much money involved, also because money are, in 2015, there were a lot of investment in this ecosystem, but they are going not through specific long-run oriented research. Yeah, every few minutes you will have to do that. Not to. Okay, they are not going to finance a research project, advanced research project that usually are open source, as still investors are not very used with how can I make return of investment with open source projects. Well, you have a nice idea. Your idea is to disintermediate completely your business. That's cool, but how will you make money about that? So it's difficult to gather serious investment, and also the ecosystem is very dispersed, too much distributed, I will say. Everyone is a CIO of himself. It's difficult to build teams. The traditional startup ecosystem is already strange. Blockchain ecosystem is a mess, and so we started this lab with a blockchain lab, with the purpose of solving two problems at once. So we said, okay, institution, you have money, you don't have knowledge, you cannot access knowledge from traditional ways, you cannot hire Bitcoin expert because usually they just quitted the job in a financial institution, and also projects are poor, but Bitcoin experts are not usually poor because maybe they are early adopters. So you cannot hire them. How can you have their knowledge? Well, finance the lab. We will finance incubating the projects, and we will get knowledge from the projects. So many financial institutions are funding us. I will give a few names. They give us money, and we give that money to the project, not usually in form of cash, because it will be difficult to control the flow, but in form of general incubation. That means like a space, a lab in the center of Milan next to the station, next to each other, international travels, education, because maybe some expert is very advanced in cryptography, but it doesn't have a clue about the distributed system, or the opposite, or both do know nothing about game theory, and so we are trying to teach them every part that is missing in their formation. Of course, we buy bit seats and full nodes and 21 computers and all the stuff that they can hack, they can play with. And sometimes we also directly fund with the lab some little project, but usually we do not give the money directly. What we ask in exchange is information sharing. Sharing not just with the lab, so with me and my assistants, but also between the startups themselves. So everyone has a disclosure agreement, not a non-disclosure, a disclosure agreement that they sign, and they have to share everything they are doing with other participants of the lab. Everything is protected by an outer non-disclosure agreement that we as a lab enforce, so everyone can disclose everything to the other members of the lab, and we prevent them. It's not enforceable, really, but we try to prevent them to disclose that on the outside. So there is a circle of information. Everyone in the lab is learning from the others. And as a byproduct of this sharing, we take this information, we package it, and we structure it, and we sell it to the financial institution. The financial institution financing us now are Intesa Sanpaolo, which is interesting because it's a very large bank. The name San Paolo bring many to think that it is in Brazil, but it's not. San Paolo is the Italian name of Saint Paul, and it's an Italian bank, and it's like the fourth financial group in Europe, so very huge. Azimut is a private wealth management group, mainly Italian. It's international, but it's mainly focused in Italy. Deloitte, you know, it's a consulting firm. Deloitte Italia is financing the lab as well. On the other side, we gathered a lot of guys right now, mainly from Italy. The step 2 of the lab will be to gather them also from abroad, and now I will tell you how. Lawrence Naum, many of you maybe know him. He's the guy from Green Address, which is the first hierarchical deterministic wallet. When BIP32 came out, he was the first to build it with BIP38 encrypted seed. Then he was the first P2SH pay-to-script hash with multi-sig wallet, because he was using multi-sig to provide instant confirmation and two-factor security. So when P2SH came out, he was the first to implement it, and he went on. He was the first to support all the hardware wallets from Satoshi Labs to Ledger, and the first to implement SegWit a few months ago, and the first to make sidechain transaction on alpha elements. Now the first to implement opt-in RBF, replaced by fee. So he likes to be the first to do stuff in the wallets. And Thomas Bertani is a guy working on mainly oraclize. He's an expert of smart oracles. He worked mainly on Ethereum because it's simpler for now to do smart contract stuff on Ethereum. And Riccardo Casata is a guy working on mainly notarization, eternal messages in the blockchain, op-return, clear messages, and also a Merkelization of document on the op-return. I think someone in common to also he's thinking about application in all kind of registries and so on. So maybe I will connect you. Franco Cimati is a historical, the first Italian Bitcoiner that we know of. He sent a mail to Satoshi Nakamoto, and he had a reply. So it's a legendary. Sometimes we touch him. And Sebastiano Scroffi, Timone Radarelli, Marco Amadori, Marco Giglio, people working on, Martino Salvetti, I made his name little, but he's doing very cool stuff. He's working on a Python implementation of segregated witness on the Peter Todd's library. Timothy Radarelli is actually core developer because he committed, like, he requested 3 pools on core, and so we are core developer. And the criteria of selection is mainly technical. We don't usually incubate experts just on marketing sides. If the project needs also not technical expertise, and usually it does, we try to have in the lab just the technical part, if possible, and to concentrate on that, because physical physical presence is important. Everything is distributed online, that's cool, but the thing is that the barrier to communication, if someone is on the other side of the world to open a chat and to actually tell him something, it has to worth it, it has to be important. And if you are in the same lab and the same desk, things start to happen more quickly, as you know here, because you are doing the same here with distributed lab. It's distributed, but it's concentrated. And so the selection is technical guys. Well, I will talk about the selection when I talk about the club. This is the model that we started in June 2015. And now the second step. The second step is the blockchain club. So now we are getting money in exchange not just of knowledge, but in exchange of equity. The participants of the club are not just the big institution I told you before, but also private investors. We are starting with this experiment of 5 million euros club, very small vehicle for now, but that's just to start. And they get money, they give money, they get equity of the vehicle, and we give money in 100,000 euro per round, so very small amount just to early stage project, to the startups, and we take equity from the startup. And the interesting thing is that there is again this round connection, because everyone in the lab, pro quota measured by the level of their contribution to the knowledge of the lab, they get some part of the equity of the club. So you come into the lab, you don't have your project, but you contribute very much to the knowledge of everyone, and you get some part of the club with the startups inside. So it's a very exotic model. We are experimenting with it, very strange, but we think that that's something that helps us to align the incentives. Well, now we are incubating, of course, the startups we are financing startup which we are incubating. So
Thank you so much, Giacomo. Before you leave, since we have a little bit of time, I would like to ask you, maybe you can give a little bit of some kind of a conclusion of the conference we met recently, that was Consensus 2016 in New York. That was one of the biggest, or most probably the biggest event of the year, that gathered 1,500 of people from all over the world, and that was all about it. So from the investment perspective, from the trends perspective, maybe you can give a couple of sentences to just brief us.
It was very cool, especially for the PR in the corridors, more than for the panels. For the first day, I was at every panel, but then I learned that it was better to be outside speaking with the people. Of course, the interesting stuff of this kind of conference is that they gather, because they are the speakers, all the maximum experts. So it's a giant single point of failure. Like a food poisoning in that hotel could just destroy Bitcoin forever, and it's very nice to make connection to discuss with guys. You can speak with Vitalik, with Peter Thor, with Adam, with a lot of cool people, and that was very nice. Of course, the first day was just all about Satoshi Nakamoto, Australian Satoshi, fake Satoshi Nakamoto. But then the second and the third day were more general. And one conclusion that I have is that there is a guy in our lab, Marco Amadori, who always tells us that in 2013 the new Bitcoin was Bitcoin was altcoins. In 2014, the new Bitcoin was Bitcoin 2.0, meta protocols. In 2015, the new Bitcoin was blockchain. In 2016, the new Bitcoin will be Bitcoin. And I think that in Consensus, we started to see something about that, because, of course, the 2015 Consensus was just, we forget, well, Bitcoin is dead. Now, every panel was likely to admit that this public, very secure, and very innovative public free open access blockchain is here to stay, and they will have to do something with it. Just like I think you are very young on average, but many of you will remember the internet stuff in the 90s. The year before, MSN dial-up, AOL, CompuServe. It was all about internet is bad, but online is very good, and we will make it inside. Then the next year, Bill Gates had his keynote speech where he said, okay, no, I was joking, we are all about the internet. And maybe this could be a pivotal point in that direction. That was my perception. Maybe I just deluded, but.
Thank you so much, Giacomo. Thank you.